All right, so we are in here today because Mr. Charlie Woodford is a World War II veteran, like I've been telling you guys all week. I'd like you guys, if you have your questions out, to have them out and ready to ask him. You might come up with more questions as he is talking. I would be surprised if you didn't come up with more questions as he was talking. So, I told you guys before, Mr. Woodford was in the European theater, and he was stationed in England, and he'll talk about that. This is a map of England. Right here is the point to Calais, if you guys remember that. The shortest distance between the two. So just to kind of give you an idea, Normandy would be down here. All right, there's England where he was stationed at. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Woodford. I'll ask for you guys to pay close attention, and we'll stop for questions throughout. All right, and I'll just let Mr. Woodford take it from here. How about a round of applause?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So are you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Patz. It's good to be here. It's an honor to be here to talk to you this morning. And before I start on my 5-hour speech, I'd like to, some of you have questions, what you want to hear from me. Now let's start out with that, and then I'll go into what I have to say. So, anybody have any questions? Yeah.
What is your most memorable experience from the whole thing?
All right, so from the war itself, what was the #1 most memorable experience?
The most memorable was when I came back on a hospital ship and I saw the Statue of Liberty. I know I was back home and not too far from my family and friends, but getting back to the United States and alive and in one piece, that was memorable.
It's pretty memorable. Harrison.
What type of missions did you primarily run, like cargo or?
So what kind of missions did you run? Was it cargo missions?
I was able to get in only 11 missions. We got shot up pretty bad over Bremen, Germany, the 26th of November. I don't know what happened. My last recollection was like you put a bunch of cinders in a can and shook it. I regained consciousness the next afternoon, and I was a mess. They had a kind of a canopy over me so nothing could touch me. And I started about a 6-month recuperation process in the hospitals in England. Came back on a hospital ship to Walter Reed Hospital in D.C., down to Little Rock, Arkansas, before I was released for duty again.
Zach?
When you left from home, how long did you expect to be away from it?
All right, when you left from home, originally from your house, how long did you expect to be gone when you left?
Well, I was in California when I went in. I was working for Hughes Aircraft, and I went into the service at Fort MacArthur in the 31st of October, 1942. I had no idea how long it would be before the war ended, because they had to end the war in Europe, and then when that happened, they took all the forces getting ready to go over and VJ Day in the South Pacific. So I had no idea, but I was 3 years to the day from the time I was sworn in until I was discharged.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the war?
How did you feel about America fighting in the war?
How did America fight it?
Yeah, the idea of the war itself, how did you feel about that?
About our entry into the war? Well, we had to support Britain, because England was fighting the whole war itself. They were going against the Nazi Empire. They had just about all of Europe under their control. And if we had gone to their aid, eventually I think they would have crossed the channel, invaded England, and then they had the capability at that time for long-range bombers to hit the United States. So I think it was a case of necessity, and there was a lot of opposition against our country going into the war. But then after Pearl Harbor, I mean, there was no question everybody got behind behind the campaign.
Austin?
How much training did you have to go through before going into on missions per se?
Overall or individual mission?
Like overall.
How much training did you have to go through to be qualified to do what you did?
Okay, the training, it wasn't the best in the world. When I was sworn in, I was sent to Denver, Colorado, where you went through a battery of tests to see what your skill was going to be. From Denver, I went to Larry Air Force Base, which is all known Denver. That was for armament school, where you learned the machine guns, 50 caliber, how to take them down, put them back together. And from there, we went down to Fort Myers, Florida, for our air-to-air gunnery training. And we weren't very good. I mean, part of the training was they would put us in the back of a truck, drive us around the range, and there was skeet targets. You know, they'd fire out the clay shell. We had a double-barrel shotgun, and we were supposed to shoot them. And if we hit one, we were lucky. Air-to-air was ridiculous because we were in a T6 standing up in an open cockpit with a 50 caliber, and they had the tow plane with a target. Well, you know, trying to hit that, you know, it was ridiculous. So we went into combat, and my personal feeling is we were not ready. We were, you know, we knew what we had to do, but as far as skill and marksmanship, it just wasn't there. But I think they had to rush us through all that to get us into combat, you know, and get us on the active duty. So.
Go ahead, Brad.
When did you enlist?
When did you enlist?
What?
When did you enlist? When did you enlist?
Enlist? I was out in California, Fort MacArthur, California, in the Los Angeles area. My hometown was Iowa. I'd left there when I got out of high school, went out to California and worked in the aircraft factories. And then when the Japs hit, I had a heck of a time getting a release from Hughes Aircraft because they thought I was essential to war production. And if I quit, I would automatically go into the Army, you know, under ground forces, and I didn't want that. And finally, I convinced them to release me so I could join, so I could enlist.
What year was that?
That was in 1942, the 31st of October, 1942.
Zach,
Why did you want to enlist?
why did you want to enlist?
What?
Why did you want to do that? Why did you want to enlist?
Why? Our country was at war, and I was probably one in I don't know how many million, and I just wanted to get in and do my part. I didn't know what I was getting into, but you know, did what I had to do. I did what I wanted to do, and I have no regrets. If they need me now, at my old age, I'm ready to go again.
Lydia,
Did you want to enter the war before Pearl Harbor?
would you personally?
Yeah.
Yeah, would you personally have done that? Would you have wanted to fight like that before Pearl Harbor? Or did Pearl Harbor change your mind?
Well, I think it's both ways. Pearl Harbor changed my mind after that attack, and then I definitely wanted to go. I wanted to get in and do my part and all that stuff, so it had some effect on it.
Any other questions? Jack,
What kind of airplane did you fly?
tell them about your airplane.
Okay, here we go. I was a tail gunner on the B-17 back there. This was a 10-man crew. We had two people in the nose, a navigator and a bombardier, pilot and co-pilot, top turret, left waist, right waist, radio hatch, and then underneath was a ball turret. And it was a 10-man crew. Back in the tail, I was kind of far away from the rest of the crew, but we had interphone connections and all that so we could be in contact with each other. But that was a big, good airplane. That was the state of the art back in the 40s, and you look at them now, and it looks like a Model T Ford compared to what some of the cars they have nowadays. But it could take a lot of flak damage, fighter damage. It could come back on one engine, you know, if it had to be that way. So it was a good, stable airplane, and it brought you home if you possibly could.
So Charlie, your job was back here, right?
Yeah, I was clear back to the tail. I'm going to start these pictures around. That will show you what it was like on the inside. and give you a chance to look at what it looked from the outside.
Charlie, why don't you tell them, I'm gonna sit down.
What?
I'm gonna sit here like I was the tail gunner. You tell them what you had to do in the back of that plane.
Well, in the tail, I mean, I was responsible for all of the aircraft coming in from the tail, coming in towards us. And I'll say one thing, these German fighter pilots were brave. They were good, they were fearless, and they did what they had to do, because one plane, if they were coming in from the tail, there could be 6 50 caliber machine guns aimed at them from one aircraft. And if you have a 24 plane formation, you got 144 50 caliber guns shooting 18 rounds a second heading out that way. And come in against all that lead, you had to be brave, either that or insane. Because I mean, there was a lot of lead going out there. Well, the Luftwaffe found out it took too long for the closure rate. In other words, we'd be going maybe about 180, and they would be coming maybe 200 miles an hour. So the time it took to get within range took too long. So the Luftwaffe changed their tactics and started head-in attacks coming right to you. And they had more success that way, because that way you only had about 5 guns per plane, but you didn't have that much time to get on your target before it was gone underneath you. So that changed the whole tactic of warfare. And then once in a while, the Germans had enough of B-17s shot down that they were able to put together 2 or 3 to fly, off our formation, and they would radio our altitude and speed, and that would help the fighters come in and get us. And we had a funny, I guess it's kind of awkward, but we had every mission we had what we called a code of the day, and it was on rice paper, so if you got shot down, you could chew and swallow it. Well, this one mission, we saw a B-17 off to our left, and we were beginning to wonder what it was, and it started getting closer, and everybody was getting a little bit antsy, wondering what was going on. And finally, the group lead gave the orders to shoot, and we took that plane down. I mean, we shot it down, and that evening over Lord Haw, the German propaganda station, they congratulated us for shooting down a plane that had a 1-star general in it. And it was just stupidity on their part, because we were trying to get them to identify themselves with our Aldous lamp, but they did not reply to us. And just out of safety for everybody in the bomb group, they did what they had to do. And so those people spent about 3.5 years in the POW camp just because of stupidity on their part. And there was no repercussions on the bomb group, because we did what we felt was necessary.
So let me have that for a second. So what happened is, you guys shot down one of our planes
No.
that had a general on it.
No.
And they got captured by the Germans.
No.
Wow.
No, they thought that was a prize.
Okay, so let's say you're gonna go and get in the back of the plane to do your job,
No.
and you have to sit down.
No.
What was it like to sit down in the back of that airplane?
Well, it was a bicycle, something like a bicycle seat, and your feet had to go forward towards the tail, and I didn't like that, so I scrounged the safety belt and I fixed it so I could have my kind of kneel like that and lean back against this, because sometimes our mission, we had one mission that was 10 hours, and boy, to sit back there in that position, the temperatures usually ran about 40 to 45 degrees below zero, and you just wanted to be as comfortable as possible and try to keep from freezing to death.
All right, start with the story about your training.
Okay, now training, once I was designated as a gunner, we were also, everybody met to Moses Lake, Washington, and that's where we met our crew. Our crew was assembled there. We took crew training there at Moses Lake, and then we went down to Walla Walla, Washington for further training, and then our final training was Topeka, Kansas. That was our last base before we went overseas. And I shouldn't tell it to you young people, but we partied so much that we couldn't pass our flight physical because of blood pressure. So we were restricted to the base for 3 days until our blood pressure got down to where it should have. When we passed our physical, they shipped us to Patrick Henry, Virginia, and that's where we took a troop ship overseas, 30 days from Virginia to Liverpool, England. And you never saw so much water in your life. We could go no faster than the slowest ship, and we were in a convoy. And that was when the submarine menace was really great. We had to lay off of Newfoundland, I think, for 4 or 5 days because of the wolf packs were there. And finally, we got the okay to go on towards our destination. And a funny thing happened on that overseas trip. You know, your crew, you had to work as a family. We had one crew where the pilot was mean. He would turn his own crew members in. Well, the word got out on that ship that if they ever found him on deck at night, he would never get to where we were going. And somewhere, somehow, somebody threw him overboard. That's a long swim. And they got our destination, they got a new pilot, and everything was fine, but you know, you had to do that. You had to get along with everybody, and when you did that to his crew, he paid the ultimate sacrifice, and I hope he was a good swimmer, because he had a long way to go.
So what he would do is like if the guys didn't have their shoes shined or their belt wasn't on right, he would write them up and turn them in. Right? That's what that guy would do. He'd write you up if you didn't like have your belt tightened right or your shoes weren't right. He would turn you in for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He stopped doing that though.
Yeah.
Tell him about the training in Walla Walla. You guys in the
Walla Walla was fun. I mean, that's why we were hot rocks. You know, we had a 50 Mason half and a pair of silver wings. And we were on a gunnery training mission one day, having a lot of fun, and down low level, we were so low to the ground, the props kicked up dust and the ball turret gunner couldn't see the fire. And all of a sudden, somebody put a church steeple in front of us. And boy, we hit that. I mean, we hit that with our right wing. We took off probably maybe about 10 or 15 foot of that church steeple. And boy, we knew we were in hot water, because when we got back to the base commander was in the Jeep at the end of the flight line waiting for us. We had a big gash in the leading edge of the wing, and we were in, oh boy, we got it. And he put us, attention, and he dressed us down. And he told us we were restricted to the base, we were grounded, and we had to go out and help the people rebuild that church steeple, and we had to pay the cost prorated against the rank of the crew members. And it turned out really neat. I mean, the townspeople were a little bit irritated, which I can understand, but we had to take our duty of free time and help build that church steeple. And when we were all done, they all got together to do a great big potluck dinner for us one Thursday night. So everything turned out fine. I mean, they repaired the plane. We had some good memories, and they had some good memories of us. And it worked out really good, and we learned a lesson.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about in England, right, when you're at your base, well, what's it like to go to find out what your assignment is? Like, how did they train you, or what was coming up, what you're going to do?
Okay, when we got to Liverpool, we were initially assigned to the 100th Bomb Group. And on our way to the 100th, our destination was changed, which was really lucky for us. And we were assigned to the 388th. And they had flown about, I think, 21 or 22 missions. When we got there, we learned that you had to put in 25 missions before you could rotate back to the States. The life expectancy was 3. So your chances of getting home were nil and nothing. We had to go through additional training on formation flying, gunnery, navigation, and things like that. And we were having a pretty, we were getting into base life, getting settled down. Our first mission came, and to Reims, France, it was what we called it. So we got really serious, and we got with our program 100%. We started flying our missions, things were going along pretty good. We flew that one mission to Woodford, Germany, a ball bearing factory. We lost 61 aircraft that day, 610 men didn't return back that night. And if you can see this map, we were located right there, and all these red dots were locations of the bomb groups. And if you can imagine the air traffic on a mission, when you had all those bomb groups with 24, maybe 24 or 30 planes taking off, I mean, the air was filled with aircraft. We had to take off, climb ready to climb a certain, not so many feet per minute for so many sections left, right, and you had to zigzag till you got ready to break into formation. And if you weren't good on navigating dead directing and a plane was off course, you had a mid-air collision, and it was quite frequently you'd see a big flare up in the overcast. You knew that two planes came together and 20 people lost their lives. But once you broke up into the overcast, the lead plane had a flare gun with different colors. He would fire that gun, and you would try to get yourself into formation before you crossed the channel. And going over, once in formation, to head for your target, your IP, your initial point, that's when you started your bomb run. You had to stay at a certain altitude. You couldn't take evasive action, and you were at the mercy of the flak batteries and the Luftwaffe. And that was the worst part, because boy, they had flak, but you felt like you could just walk across it and not touch the ground. And once you dropped your bombs in, you got out of there as fast as you could and headed back home. If you had a plane that was a pretty bad shape, a straggler, that's what we called a straggler, that's what the Luftwaffe went after. Because you had only one plane against all the aircraft. I mentioned the 100th Bomb Group earlier. There was an unwritten code in air combat that if your plane was badly damaged and you're going to bail out, if you would lower your flaps and drop your gear, they would hold off their fire attack on you and give you a chance to bail out. Well, this one plane was in bad shape, and the pilot hatched the idea, we're going to do that, drop the gear, lower the flaps, and the Luftwaffe held off, but they had one on each wing, and he gave the orders to fire, and they shot down both of them. And one of them had enough presence of mind to notice the tail marking, which in our case was rectangle H. And from that time on a mission, the Luftwaffe would sweep the formation, and if they saw planes with the rectangle H on, that's the one they went after. They put all their efforts in trying to shoot down as many of those as retaliation. And I don't know whether that pilot got court-martialed or not, but he caused an awful lot of lives.
So let me recap that. So on both sides, there was like an unwritten rule that if you put your flaps down, that you're giving up. So don't shoot us down, we're injured, we're gonna jump out, we're gonna evacuate the plane. So this guy, not Charlie's guy, but the 100th company, they put their flaps down. So the Nazi pilots, the Luftwaffe, were escorting them back, right, so that they could jump out. Instead of, they could have easily shot them down. They didn't do that. And then the guys on our side said, okay, once they got to a safe spot, they shot down to both planes of the Luftwaffe. So those guys radioed back who it was, and I guess they survived, some of them survived, and they radioed back that triangle, or the rectangle H, so then the Luftwaffe knew it. So every time the Germans came after us, they looked for that rectangle H, and if they saw that on the plane, that's what they went after. because that was payback for shooting those planes.
I know on one mission to Bremen, this 100th bomb group lost 23 out of 24 aircraft. They were just after they did a good job. But one plane came back to the base that night. All the rest of them were shot down. Unexcusable. Any other question?
Yeah, what questions you
Oh
guys
boy,
have?
yeah.
On the back of your jacket, it says Lady Lillian. Is that the name of your plane?
So it says Lady Lillian here. What does this mean?
Okay, this was the name of our plane. High Bar H, that was a marking on the tail of the airplane. 388th Bomb Group, 561st Squadron, and then that was every mission that I was able to fly on.
So how many missions before you could go home? How many missions did you have to fly before you were done?
Well, you had to fly 25 to get home. And to this day, I don't know what got our plane, whether it was flak or fighter, but it was in such bad shape when they got back to the base that they grounded, they made a hangar queen out of it and used it for spare parts to keep other planes in the air.
All right, what other
That
questions?
jacket right now, I paid $24 and something for it in 1942, and now if I wanted to, I could get maybe $1,200 or $1,300 for it.
Harrison.
Do you have many experiences with, let's say, English civilians?
Did you encounter any English civilians, people from England, while you were in when you were in the
what-
war? Did you encounter any English civilians?
Any what?
People from England. Did you come encounter with it? Talk to them at all?
Oh yeah, we had a lot of fun. We had a pub about 8 blocks from our base entrance, and we'd like to go up there in our free time, and tip a few pints, play darts, and socialize with the people, and they were nice. They were friendly, and we had a lot of fun. And they wrote our initials on the ceiling, and to this day, I was over there about 2 years ago, and that ceiling is faded out. But we had a lot of fun. Our first night in the town, we weren't familiar with the English currency, and boy, they took us to camp. I mean, we didn't know what a pound was. We just peeled out these things, maybe bought a pint or two, and we got back to the base next morning and figured out just how much money we had. And boy, we paid over $4 for a pint of hot beer. But they were great. I mean, we had a lot of fun. There was some, not hostility, but feelings between the 8th Air Force and the RAF, because our staff sergeant pay was equal to what their flight commanders paid. And so that brought a little bit of, not hard feelings, but we had more money to spend than what they did. But it was enjoyable.
So how much money did you get? What did you get paid?
My base pay was $96.
$96 how often?
What?
How often? How much? When did you get $96? Like once a week? Once a month?
Well, that was $96 a month. And then we flew combat for $48, which figures out to about $1.75 a day. And that's not very good pay. You don't think that's good pay? But, you had to watch your spending and all that stuff on base. They had the PX, they had everything you needed on the base. They had sports activities, libraries, movie, and stuff like that. And once in a while, you could get a pass to go into London, and that was always exciting too.
All right, other questions? Zach?
What were some of the things you missed most about home when you left it?
What did you miss the most about home?
My girlfriend. I had a wonderful gal that waited for me. We dated in high school, and we didn't even think about marriage. I didn't know whether I'd be coming back or not, but she dated other guys, and she was waiting for me. I got discharged in October of '45. We were married in April of '46. Had 56 great years together. So that's what, well, I miss my folks too, but I guess maybe it was 50-50.
Tell them the story about training. When you were training and you wanted to see that girlfriend, how did you get back to see her when you were in training? When you wanted to see her when you were training?
Oh, well, my last stint was at Denver, Colorado, Lowry Field, and hitchhiking was good then. When I got off duty around 4 o'clock, I'd walk out to the highway and hitchhike from Lowry Field to central Iowa. And the hitchhiking was good. I mean, I got used to it.
So hold on, that's Denver, Colorado to Iowa.
Yeah, that was about, yeah. And after about one or two trips, I knew if I was a certain place, I was on schedule. My first time I made a mistake. I didn't get a ride all the way through Omaha and Council Bluffs, but I would get back to Iowa the next morning, maybe about 8 or 9 o'clock, depending upon the rides. I would have to leave Sunday afternoon no later than 4 o'clock to be sure to get back to Lowry Field in time for duty. But I did not miss a weekend from the 31st of, no, for about 2.5 months of going to Iowa. And I had that down to a T, and I had some wild rides too, I'll tell you that.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
How did you get back here to Illinois then?
So how'd you end up back in Illinois?
Well, we got married in '46. I went to college on Iowa State, Iowa State in aeronautical engineering. Then I was looking for a job. Our first job opening was at the Middletown Air Material in Middletown, Pennsylvania. And we wanted to get back into the Midwest, so we put in an application for a transfer, and we sent letters to Scott, Chanute, ran two all around the Midwest. Scott Field came through with what we wanted, what I wanted to be in, so we moved to Belleville in 1950. And we've been here since then.
Was there any time where you just wish you could quit and go home?
Was there any time during the war where you said, I want out of here, I want to quit, I want to go home?
Well, no, you couldn't quit. Sometimes you wonder why in the heck did I volunteer for this? And that brings up another thing. You know, these missions were H-E-double, you know what. And a lot of times, I know our first mission, we had a real good fella. First mission, he went berserk. He just could not handle the fighters on flak, and he went to the infirmary, and they put him on the ground. But what they put on his 201 file was LOMF, and that stands for lack of moral fiber. And once you had your 201 file with that on it, you were dead in the water for promotions. And I think that was wrong, because you put some of these, and no disrespect to the medical field, but if you put some of these medical fields in some of those air to combat conditions, they might change your opinion on that, because some guys could handle it and some people couldn't, and I thought that was very unfair.
All right, speaking of your combat missions, did you ever see any of the Luftwaffe, like face-to-face? Did you ever see any of those pilots? Did you ever get close enough that you could see them?
Oh yeah, they'd come right through your formation. I mean, they would come in from the tail, and they would swoop right underneath you. You just had a split second maybe to see the pilot, and he was gone. And I know one time, I forget one mission, it was one, they took a direct hit on the plane off of our right wing, and that blew up in a ball of fire and threw us on our left wing, and we just about took out the plane to our left because of the force of the explosion. And we finally got it righted up, but boy, that was the time I thought that was the end of it. It was a great experience. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but if we had to, I'd be there.
All right, so you got hurt, okay. Yeah. How did your parents find out you got hurt?
Oh, I didn't. Oh, let me send this around.
Can I read this to him?
Yeah.
All right, so it says, Raymond Woodford, I'm assuming that's your dad, right? It says, regret to inform you, your son, Staff Sergeant Charles A. Woodford, was on 29 November seriously injured in action in the European area, period, end of sentence. You will be advised as reports of condition are received. When did your parents get this Western Union telegram?
And if you notice the date on this, it's the 29th of December. So that was a month after I was wounded that they got this telegram, and it was sent, and they received it Christmas Eve. And what a heck of a Christmas present that was. They didn't know my status. They didn't know at that point in time whether I was dead or alive. And my folks they'd planned a big Christmas party with all the aunts and uncles at my folks' home. And when they got this, I mean, they still had it, but my aunt, when she first saw my mom, she knew something was wrong. And why they had to deliver that Christmas Eve after a 30-day delay, I don't know. They could have waited till the day after Christmas. No, when it would have been a lot better. And they never did find out my status until they got my first letter from me.
And when was that? When did they get that letter?
Well, that was in, oh boy, I was able to dictate that in. That was probably in January, about the middle of January, that I had somebody write a letter to them and tell them, you know, I was alive in one piece. And then there was just a healing process after that.
How were you injured?
How were you injured? How did you get injured?
What?
How did you get injured? Tell them that story about when you got injured.
Well, I don't know whether it was flak or fighters. I have no idea. I had, well, my hands and feet were frozen. I had, I think, 13 or 14 body wounds. And like I said before, they had built a canopy over me so that nothing could touch me. And I was all bandaged up. I was a mess. My therapy started, well, probably about 2 days after, paraffin treatment for your hands and feet. And I was within 48 hours of amputation of my hands and feet, because they didn't think it was progressive fast enough, and I was scheduled to lose them. And boy, I don't know what my life would have been like if that had happened, but I think in March, I thought I could feel something, and I convinced the medics that there was some feeling. They blindfolded me, and they pricked my fingers, and if I flinched, they knew that there was some feeling, and I was taken off of that list. So.
All right, questions, Rena?
Do you think FDR knew about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Okay, so do you think FDR knew that the attack on Pearl Harbor was coming?
I think they knew something was going to happen, whether it was Pearl Harbor or not. I think they had indication that something was going to happen pretty soon, and then they did not take action to prepare for it.
All right, other questions? Well, that's a really good question, Sabrina. Any other questions?
I'm going to sit down.
Go right ahead. There you go. We got some water. Henry?
If you had like 1 or 2 words to describe the whole thing, what would it be?
All right, so you got to describe your whole experience in 1 or 2 words.
My what?
Your whole experience in the war in 1 or 2 words. And it's okay to cuss.
It was awesome. I guess. I mean, I don't know whether you were scared or not. You weren't scared because I don't think you had time to be. Things got moving so fast. I think you were uptight. Especially you were worried before the takeoff, you know, whether you could form up without a mid-air collision. And once you got into the combat, once you got overseas, across the channel, then I think things were so fast moving, you know, that I don't know whether you were scared or not. I think the worst part was that night trying to get to sleep and rehashing in your mind everything that happened that day, because you were still uptight. And one thing, we had breakfast every morning before we flew, and if we had fresh eggs for breakfast, we knew it was going to be a long day, because that's like the condemned man's last meal. The rest of the time you had powdered eggs and all that stuff, so it was fresh eggs. you better have everything in order because that might be your last one.
Tell them about bombing Switzerland.
About what?
Bombing Switzerland.
About what?
Bombing Switzerland. When you guys got lost and you bombed the wrong place.
Oh, Switzerland, yeah. Did I tell you about me bombing Switzerland? Oh boy. It was overcast, it was foggy. We saw 2 mid-air collisions that day trying to get through the overcast. Once we broke clear and in the clear skies, there were planes scattered all over England. Trying to find your bomb group was hard. Sometimes you got into another group. We went across the channel and started down through southern France. Our IP, our initial point, was a lake. That's what you sighted on for your bomb run. And on time and what we thought was on target, the group lead, the deputy lead, saw this lake down here, and they thought, well, that's the target. So they set up the bomb run, and we were straight and level, dropped our bombs, did a big turn to the left and headed home. And when we got back to the base, oh, you know what heck broke loose. We had bombed Switzerland. And Hap Arnold, the Air Force Chief of Staff, wanted heads to roll because that was an embarrassment to our government. And so he wanted to find the crew of both the deputy and the lead and the deputy lead court-martialed. Well, there was no way in the world that was going to happen because they reconstructed the whole mission. Everybody acted on good faith, and they would not blame anybody, but the 2-star general that let the mission happen got sacked, and they sent him back to the States. Lord.
Other question? Zach?
After you went back home to the United States, what were your initial plans, like in terms of like getting a job and like home life and stuff like that?
What did you want to do when you got back home? Like as far as a career, what career did you want to do?
Well, there was no job openings for tail gunners. we had to. That was it. I was always interested in aviation, so that's why I went up to Iowa State on the GI Bill of Rights and got my degree in aeronautical engineering. And then went to Pennsylvania and started my career and came to Scott and finished it.
Okay, so let's talk GI Bill of Rights. How much did you have to pay to go to college?
It was all free. My first year at Iowa State, and this is going to blow your mind, my first year total was $950. That was tuition, books, everything. And now I don't think that would get you into a dormitory. But the GI Bill was the greatest thing because that gave the veterans a chance for an education, a job skill where they could go out and be productive citizens.
All right, so
Can I ask what?
go ahead, Joe.
Can you ask him about Korea? Was there a chance that he was going to go to Korea, or his thoughts as that conflict started?
Was there any chance of you going to Korea for the Korean War?
The Korean War, oh no. The Korean War, I think, started in 1950. When I got back and when I was released for duty, I was at Lowry Field, and I was on B-29s. And why you volunteered to go back over to the South Pacific, I don't know. My folks were definitely not happy. But we were about, I would think maybe we were about 3 or 4 weeks before heading to Frisco and going overseas.
So wait a second, you volunteered to go back to Korea?
I volunteered to go back to the South Pacific. Boy, that's not too smart.
All right.
You know, I apologize. My hearing isn't that great. That's why Mr. Patson had to relay the question to me. Go ahead.
Austin, go ahead.
Do you ever wake up, have dreams of PTSD in a sense?
Do you ever still have dreams about the war? Negative or positive?
Well, the one that would bother me the most was that time that took a direct hit. And it was all of a sudden, it disappeared. I mean, it was this great big ball of fire and there was airplane parts flying all over. And when we went off on the left wing, we were just about perpendicular. And it was the skill of the pilot and the co-pilot that we didn't take out that plane when we were left. But I still, once in a while, I'll wake up with that, and just like it happened yesterday.
So, like right after the war, did you ever have problems? Did you have any kind of mental issues?
Oh, no. Well, I didn't myself. I don't think any of our crew did. I think that was a different kind of a war than what of our good personnel are experiencing now, because a lot of times you're fighting an unseen enemy that you'll never see, but they've got all these booby traps and all this high-tech firepower. I didn't have any. I don't think any of our crew did. We have a real good bomb group reunion, group association. We meet every year, and I haven't heard of one of them, mention that. We meet every year. This year we're going to meet at Ice Twice and renew old experiences and stuff like that. And you have to bring a shovel to shovel out the hospitality room because it gets kind of thick.
Stories are pretty thick. Okay, tell them about meeting the person at Cahokia Mounds.
Oh, okay, yeah, I do volunteer work up at Cahokia Mounds. And one Saturday afternoon, I was just about ready to go home. And a couple came in, and one of the other volunteers, he had a Korean baseball cap on. And he got to talking, he said, there's a World War II vet over by the info disc, why don't you go talk to him? And he came over, we started talking, chattering about war experiences, and the bells rang, the lights lit, and I asked him, is your mother's name Marta? And he about fell over. He was the son of the person that pulled me out of the tail when I was wounded. His dad pulled me out of the tail, and there was, he and his wife were there, and if I'd have left early, or if he hadn't have worn a baseball cap, it would have never have happened. And they joined our bomb group association. He's still alive. We see him every year in our reunion. What a chance opportunity that was.
All right, did President Truman do the right thing by dropping the atomic bombs?
I do. I guess you shouldn't talk politics in school. I think Harry Truman was the best president, the last best president we had, because he would make a decision. He didn't have to form a committee and a subcommittee and report back to me 6 years from now. He made a decision on the atomic bomb. We're going to drop it. That was it. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I respect him for that, and I think the whole world did, because that ended the war a lot sooner than what it would if we'd have kept on going. You're getting sleepy.
What would have happened to you if we didn't drop the bombs?
What would have happened to me? Well, I would have been over in the South Pacific flying missions in the B-29, and you don't know what would happen. You might have made it, and chances are you might have not made it back. It would have been a bloodbath on both sides, because the Japanese were ready to fight to the last person.
Austin?
Do you know of any people that actually, was it 25 missions that that went through all 25 missions?
Do you know anybody that made it through all 25 missions?
What?
Any of your friends that made it through 25 missions?
Nobody that I know of. I don't, as far as I can relate, in 43, I don't remember a crew. No, there was a crew from another air base, Memphis Belt, made it through 25 missions, and I think that was the first plane that did it. Because, you have to get 25, and when the average life was 3 missions, your chances were nil or nothing of making it.
Alyssa, you had a question earlier. What was it?
The average time spent for each mission?
the average time span for each mission. So when you went up on the plane, how long were you in the air on average?
Well, sometimes we flew a mission up by Gdynia, up in northern part. That was about a 10-hour mission. And that was the maximum range. Most of them were, maybe 4 hours, 4.5 to 5 hours, depending upon the target. After the Schweinfurt raid, Air Force would not let us make deep penetrations because we didn't have fighter support. Schweinfurt, we had to fight our way in and fight our way back. The Luftwaffe had brought all the planes in. Somehow they knew it was going to be that target, and they had 109s and 190s stationed so that we were under a constant attack from the time we crossed the channel, going in and going out.
All right, Charlie, we gotta stop you because the class is over already.
What?
The class is over already. Can you believe that?
The what?
Your time is done. Your time is up.
Boy, I nobody fell out of their chairs, fell asleep. I hope I haven't bored you.
No.
You know, that's old World War II letters. Once we get going, we can talk about our experience for a half a day. That's why we have to take a shovel to the group reunion. But thank you very much. I appreciate your attention.